Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable.
Revolution.
First, what is a revolution?
Revolution is the solution, hey.
The motive of a revolution.
Well, now,
The objective of a revolution.
be televised.
And the result of a revolution. And the methods used in a revolution.
I know you know. Put my gun away. Never gonna put my gun away. Put my gun away. See the mob, you better run away.
This generation of Americans has already had enough, more than enough, of war and hate and oppression.
Hello, Internet. Hope everybody is having a fantastic Wednesday evening. Happy hump day. You made it. We got a very special episode tonight. I have an exclusive interview with District Attorney out of Yolo County, Jeff Reisig, and it's sort of perfect timing because there's an insane story that came out yesterday or the day before about, I didn't realize this, there's a elder parole program, which apparently makes parolees that are guilty of the most horrific crime, or I'm sorry, criminals, convicts that are guilty of the most horrific crimes eligible for parole. And one of them is getting granted parole. So that's probably the first thing we're going to talk about tonight. So let me bring up Jeff Reisig out of Yolo County, and we're going to get into a lot of different things tonight. How we doing, Jeff?
Hey, Michael. Good. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for coming on. I mean, sort of perfect timing in a sort of sinister, horrible way.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, what's funny is, well, it's not funny. I saw somebody post this and I started reading into it and I was just like, how is this? For some reason, even though it's California, I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was shocked. And then I saw you go into it and I realized it was out of your county. So, well, actually, first of all, why don't you give the audience a little introduction? Who are you? What do you do?
Sure. Well, my name's Jeff Reisig. I am the district attorney, the elected DA in Yolo County, which is up right near Sacramento. We're actually West Sacramento, Davis. So I have UC Davis in my county and Woodland. I've been the DA 20 years. I've been a prosecutor 30 years. I've got friends and family in your neck of the woods, Michael. So I spent a lot of time at the beach down there. But my primary passion is pursuing common sense public safety fixes in California, which is a challenge every single day because the state has gone off the rails in the last decade. And I've been really involved in Prop 36, which we're going to talk about. I was the primary architect of that. And I've been working with the California DAs Association. I was the president of that association, which represents all 58 DAs in California 2 years ago.
Yeah, you've had to deal with a lot of people that I'm not too big of a fan of. Like, I won't mention any names, Chesapeake, but
well, he's gone.
Yeah, I know, but yeah, thank God. I actually like Brooke Jenkins. I think she's doing a pretty good job out of there in San Francisco. They're filing charges against somebody right now for more homeless industrial complex fraud, embezzlement, whatever you want to call it. I don't know if you saw that today.
I did. Yeah, no, she's doing a good job. That's a tough county to be a DA in.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be a tough state to be a DA in, especially if you're trying to restore order like yourself.
For sure.
All right. Well, let's get into this this case. This guy, 62-year-old. What's his name? I don't even have his name. I don't even want to say his name because, I mean, you're pretty familiar with this case, right?
Well, we've got the case that came out of my county, which was just a few weeks ago. And then we've got the national story that just happened in Sacramento last week, which was a guy named David Funston, who was the serial child rapist. He raped 7 children, kidnapped them off the street. He would lure children into his car with Barbies and candies and toys, as young as 3 in one case. And he would take them off into the woods and assault them and torture them and rape them and then let them go. He was convicted in Sac County, so my neighboring county, sentenced to 2 life terms plus 30 years. Victims were told he would never get out, that he would die in prison. And last week, the victims, we all learned, the nation learned that California has this law called the Elder Parole Law. And the Elder Parole Law says that if you are in a state prison and you are over the age of 50, you're considered
50?
elderly. 50.
That you can't even retire at 50. I have electrician friends that are 52 still doing work.
It's insane. You can't get Social Security until you're 62, but to get out of prison early, the Elder Parole Law says if you're 50 and you've served at least 20 years of your sentence, you can be considered for this elder parole. And the decision on who gets out is made by the Board of Parole Commissioners. And these people are all appointed by the governor. They serve at the pleasure of the governor.
Well,
and, that's where we are right now.
Well, it's funny because Gavin Newsom's press office is trying to run cover for him right now. So, Eric Doherty, he posts, it's official, Gavin Newsom is facing calls to resign his office because he's because of his elderly parole program, about to dump a child, blah, blah, blah. And then his press office comes out and says, the Board of Parole Hearings is an independent agency and made this decision. The governor asked for them to review its decision. The governor doesn't agree with the outcome and has no authority to reverse the independent decision per state law. And then somebody claps back at him and says, well, you signed back in September of 2020, you signed Assembly Bill 3234, which allowed this program to go forward. And, it's just the same thing. It's just the same gaslighting from Gavin. 50 years old is, how can you not be considered a threat at 50 years old anymore? Joe Rogan, who can kick both of our asses probably at the same time, is like 52 years old. And yeah. I know ultra marathon runners that look like they're in their 30s that are in their 60s. So how could this guy not be a threat anymore? How did this happen, this bill?
Yeah, it's a crazy story. It actually this law goes back to about 2016, I believe, is when it first came to be. And the author of the law, the elder parole law at that time, was Shirley Weber. You recognize that name?
Yeah, the Secretary of State. I ran for state senate and I got audited. I raised 10 grand. My opponent raised like 1.2 million and I got audited. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. What did Shirley Weber have to do with this?
Well, she was the original author of this elder parole law. And at that time, when she authored it, it only applied to people over the age of 60 who had served 25 years of their sentence. And then a few years later, there was an amendment filed by Assemblymember Ting, who I believe is out of the Bay Area, if I'm not mistaken.
What a shocker.
And that lowered it to the age of 50 with 20 years served. Now, here's the thing about the law that's crazy. It applies to rapists, murderers, kidnappers, human traffickers. There's very limited exclusion in this law. The only things that are excluded are death penalty, life without the possibility parole, cop killers, and then certain 3 strikes cases. But otherwise, everything is eligible. And this is where California is different than every other state in the nation, because there are other states that have an elder parole law, but nobody goes as far as California does in allowing child rapists and murderers to be released early. And our age is also one of the lowest in the country. So it's a double whammy. But Newsom signed it into law. So this is where, the buck stops with him. This is 100% on Newsom. The Democrat supermajority gave him a bill in 2020 that expanded elder parole, that dropped the age to 50, and did a couple other things, and he signed it. He could have vetoed it. He could have said, I don't agree with this law. No, he signed it. And then, as you know, he appointed all these parole commissioners. Every single parole commissioner works at will for the governor. He could fire him like that.
So this is directly Gavin Newsom's responsibility. This
100%. Yeah. his efforts to, or his press guy's efforts to shift the blame on this is an absolute. It is gaslighting. It's him.
Well, it's stuff like this why like the rest of the country has to see this, but Californians are so blinded. They just, I don't know why, but he gets caught repeatedly in lies and he just dances his way around them. And like the absurdity of this law, it almost makes you like, are they on the side of criminals? Because you've got stuff like this, like kidnappers, child rapists, murderers being able to be released at 50 years old. And then you see them going after people for the pettiest crimes, and they'll have to get severe penalties all the time. And then meanwhile, you've got, like there's the famous clip of Chesa Badine talking about, and I'm sure you've seen this clip. I don't know who he was interviewing with, but he talks about how, yes, there's drug dealers on the streets of San Francisco. They're here from Honduras. They were trafficked here, and we essentially have to let them deal drugs here because if they don't send money back to their families, then they're going to kill their families. And like that, he was really like, that was his point, that we kind of like have to let them do it. And I mean, when you say this stuff out loud and really point out like specifically like you just did, 50 years old, you've served 20 years of your sentence. Even if you're a rapist, a kidnapper, or a murderer, you're eligible for this program. I'm having a hard time not making any wood chipper jokes right now.
Well, it's fair. In a lot of states, Florida, Idaho, they've actually made child rape a death penalty eligible offense.
It should be.
It should be. I agree.
I mean, I'm like pro-life, and I oftentimes like to think that I'm against the death penalty. But I mean, when you do things like you said too, this particular guy that we were talking about, he pushed the girl. Didn't he pull the gun on her, pull the trigger, but it jammed too? So
that's my case. So
I'm mixing them up.
We have two separate cases, but they're all the same. It's the same elder parole law. So in my situation, we had another child rapist in my county in a little town called Winters, which is a up and coming wine area. Yeah. And this guy was the stepfather for this little girl. And he began to rape her when she was about 7 years old. And he raped her for years and years and years, beat her, tortured her, ultimately impregnated her. And then he tried to induce a miscarriage by pushing her off buildings, pushing her out of trucks. At one point, she says that he pointed a gun at her head and pulled the trigger and it misfired. She went into a DMV with her mom one day when she was a teenager. He'd been raping her all along, and she passed out, and they rushed her to the hospital, and that's where they found she was pregnant. And then she admitted what had happened. They arrested him, and he ultimately confessed to the crime, and he was sentenced to 130 years in prison, 139 years in prison. And the victims were told that he would die in prison and never get out. Well, along comes elder parole, and they granted him parole.
So he's out.
This woman, he's due to be released. Yeah. What they do is the Board of Parole Hearings conducts the hearing. They issue their opinion on the release. CDCR then sets the date. So like this guy Funston, the other one we're talking about, the serial child rapist out of Sacramento County, he's due to be released tomorrow.
Well, I mean, he's got a target on his back. So what happens when you're released on parole? What type of restrictions will he have?
Well, they'll say he's going to be supervised by a parole officer, and that, they will do random checks on him, that he'll have to live in an environment that they believe is safe for the community. But in my experience, almost all of that is BS. Once these guys, who are all sociopaths, most are psychopaths, get out, they know how to manipulate the system. They've been in prison. They know how to play every single game to get away with whatever they can. And so a parole officer, they're not living with them 24/7. They check in randomly, etc. So, I'm convinced, and every one of my colleagues sheriffs, police chiefs, everyone I've talked to is convinced that these guys are going to reoffend. They're pedophiles, and they're prolific pedophiles. And you don't cure it. You can't cure that. It's a disease. In fact, this guy that's being released out of Sacramento, Funston, the national story, we reviewed the testimony that he gave to the parole board in a previous hearing. And just within the last few years, he's admitted that he still masturbates frequently to little children in his mind. So he's admitted it, and they're going to release him.
So, two questions. How can these appointed parole commissioners, how do they justify this? Do they have to give a reason, like the Supreme Court does when they come to a decision? Do they have to give like a written reason? Like what is going through their heads? How can they possibly justify this to the public?
Yeah, the law is really squishy, but the way the penal code is written, the elder parole law, it was codified into a statute. And if you read it, it basically says that the elder parole commission or the parole commissioners need to examine the inmate's history, their code of conduct while incarcerated, the crimes, and they need to consider all of it and make a determination whether or not the inmate poses an unreasonable risk of harm to the community, whether he can be safely released. And it's super squishy. And so depending on who the commissioner is, you get very disparate opinions. But although now, because Newsom's been in office for so long, and before him it was Jerry Brown, all the commissioners are loaded to the left. They're all pro-criminal. They're all pro-criminal. But this particular batch that dealt with this case, they're almost all Newsom's guys. But the point is, the point I keep telling people is, they work for Newsom. They're not civil servants. They are at will. He can fire them at any time. And so for him to say, oh, well, I don't have any authority over him, that's a load of crap. That's not true.
So does he have the authority to demand that they reverse their decision or anything like that?
We believe he does. Yes, we believe. Now, his office put out a statement earlier today, I think, saying that the governor has no legal remedy now that the parole board has made their decision.
Yeah, his statement's right here. The Board of Parole Hearings is an independent agency and made this decision. The governor asked for them to review its decision. The governor does not agree with the outcome and has they capitalize no authority to reverse this independent decision per state law.
So there's two things. First, and when I say we, I'm talking about the California DA's Association and the Criminal Justice Legal Foundation, which is chaired by my friend Anne Marie Schubert, the former DA of Sacramento. We just sent a letter about 2 hours ago. It's hot off the presses. We sent it to the state prison demanding that they reconsider their decision, and we gave them case law and authority that allows the executive staff at the state prisons to take another look at this decision based on a flawed analysis. We have case law right on point. We gave them the authority. So we did that. The DAs and this Criminal Justice Legal Foundation have done that to try and get them to stop it. But we also believe that the governor, as the executive, has the executive authority to reverse their decision, regardless of, the statement you read. He's the governor. All of these parole commissioners work for him. If he chose to, he could issue an executive order rescinding the release, firing all of these parole commissioners. I mean, think about it. Think about what he's done in other contexts, locking down the state.
Oh, right.
Having people arrested on beaches. So the idea that he can't do anything that's ridiculous. He is the chief executive of the state. He could do something. He's just choosing not to.
Now, if I found out the names and office phone numbers of all these parole commissioners that granted him parole, would I be committing any crime if I put those names and pictures and phone numbers out there on the internet and told everyone to call them?
They're already out there.
Okay. Well,
they're there. They're on the internet, and that they're all public officials. They're appointed to this spot. I'm not promoting, doxing or harassing these people. Right.
Right.
Can't do that. But the fact that who they are and that they've made the decision, that's public record. And it's fair to criticize them.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine everyone is outraged about this. So, like, this is the huge
Except Governor
disconnect.
Newsom.
Apparently, but I mean, this is the huge disconnect between the public and the state assembly, the state senate, and Gavin Newsom's office, because, you know, everybody keeps voting Democrat. And like, I work in the trades. They don't even know who's running for governor right now. I ask everybody, people aren't paying attention. So people are like California default Democrats, and they think in their mind, like 90s Bill Clinton Democrats, you know, that are, you know, secure borders, tough on crime. But it's such a disconnect between the insane progressive policies that they push forward, like Scott Wiener. Like, Scott Wiener is not a 90s Democrat. He's a radical socialist progressive. And I don't think the people understand that that's who's representing us. And
yeah,
I don't
totally agree with you.
I don't know how to get through to people, because they immediately say, "Oh, you're MAGA, you're right wing," and it's like, no, I'm a Californian. I just I just want things to not be, you know, the term anarcho tyranny, where it's you get stuff like this, and then you've got the guy that gets his, you know, he gets ticket after ticket for parking in the wrong spot for expired tags, and then they end up taking his car, and he can't go to work, and, you know, raising the talk about the mileage tax right now, like just all the insane things, how they punish the middle class. Middle class is disappearing, and then you see crime running rampant, and there's no repercussions. It's impossible. I don't know how to. Well, okay, so actually, this sort of brings us to our next topic, Prop 36. California voted overwhelmingly on Prop 36, and that was meant to overturn a bunch of things in what proposition? Can you break that down a little bit?
Yeah, it was meant to reverse key elements of Proposition 47, which was passed by the California voters in 2014. And if you think back in time, that was sold to us as the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act.
Right.
Kamala Harris was a big proponent, and it passed pretty overwhelmingly in 2014 because it promised safer schools, safer neighborhoods. It was people were going to get help for addiction, et cetera, et cetera. And it did the exact opposite.
Right.
Like, within years of the thing passing, homelessness shot up over 50%. Overdoses went through the roof. I mean, you know, I think your listeners know California went down the toilet because you had drug addicts taking over our inner cities. You had petty thieves going hog wild, because one of the things Prop 47 did is it reset the threshold for theft. And what Prop 47 said is, if you steal less than $950, it's just a ticket. It's just a misdemeanor. And you can steal every day, 10 times a day, and it's just going to be multiple misdemeanors. And so, you know, I've been a DA, like I said, 20 years. So I watched the criminal justice system before Prop 47. I watched what happened after, and it was bad. And then I fought for 10 years to try and change the law to get some common sense. And to your point, the legislature, the supermajority legislature, did nothing to fix it. They just, you know, the Democrats, the supermajority over there, just really rejected every single amendment we brought them. And we brought them a lot of reasonable amendments. And I should say, by the way, you know, I'm a nonpartisan. DAs are nonpartisan. Mm-hmm. My county, for what it's worth, is one of the bluest counties in the Central Valley. We voted bluer than LA County. So I'm the DA in this deep blue county. People try and peg me, and I'm like, you know what? I've been elected 5 times in a county that's bluer than LA. I'm not some nut, but I care about public safety. And so when Prop 47 was wreaking havoc in the community, I sat down and I drafted the outline of Prop 36. So that was something I did in 2022.
So a little going back to Prop 47, specifically, what did Prop 47 do? We know what it did for petty theft, the threshold $950, but what did it do specifically to make homelessness worse? What did it decriminalize there?
Yeah, well, here it is. So before Prop 47, if you were caught with heroin or methamphetamine or cocaine, PCP or acid, you'd be arrested on a felony. You'd be taken to jail. You'd be booked, and then when you'd make your court appearance, the first thing that we would talk to you about, the judge would talk to you about, is getting you into some drug courts. And the option was jail, like felony jail, like you're not walking away, or drug court. And so people engaged in drug treatment programs, and cops made arrests for felony drugs. Well, Prop 47, what it did is it lowered the penalty for possession of hard drugs to a misdemeanor for all purposes, a ticket. And so you could be on the corner of Atlantic and some cross street in Santa Cruz shooting up heroin, and a cop drives by, he's going to give you a ticket. You're not going to jail.
Does he even take the drugs?
A lot of agencies stopped, actually. They would throw them away. I mean, just to be candid, like a lot of cops got so demoralized by what was going on, they would just keep driving, right? You know that, we know that. But it was that. So we know, and this is controversial to some people, but if you go out into the homeless community and you explore what percentage of the homeless community is addicted to serious drugs, it's like 100%.
Oh, it's insane. So I became buddies with a guy out here that runs Food Not Bombs, and they go out and they actually feed the homeless. He did an interview with me, and no, he says the same thing. Like, granted, there are people that have fallen on hard times, but those aren't the ones that you see. The ones that you see all over the streets, all of them are addicted to drugs. I'm a trail runner and a ultra marathon runner. So one of my routes is along the levee in Santa Cruz. I start over at like the Ross parking lot, and I run up to the boardwalk right across the street from Trader Joe's. It's like the Tenderloin across the street from there. And there's every time, because I only run there probably once every month or so, and I'd start recording when I run by, because I know I'm going to see something wild. Like, you see people like probably the craziest thing I've seen is running under an underpass, and I see this girl running away that's naked from a guy that's sitting there with the most sinister look on his face. He's got blood pouring from his nose and his mouth, and he's got a needle hanging out of his arm. Like, it was like a horror scene. And this stuff has been like, you go through certain areas in San Francisco, certain areas in LA, certain areas in Sacramento, San Diego, all the big cities, you see this, and it's become normalized. And then you hear people like, and it sucks because you hear people say California is a shithole now, which it's not. California is not a shithole. It's just you get these pockets of leftist policies in action. And when you see this, it's like that becomes a representation of the entire state. And sorry, I'm just sort of going off on a tangent there. But so that's what it did. That's what Prop 47 did, is it decriminalized the possession. But what about the open air use? Did it decriminalize that as well?
Yeah, well, open air use was a misdemeanor as well. So, I mean, it didn't matter. I mean, if you're possessing a loaded syringe of heroin or methamphetamine after Prop 47 and you're shooting up in public, it's just a ticket. It's a misdemeanor ticket. They're going to write you a notice to appear. They give it to the person. They say, go to court. And then do you think that person comes to court?
No.
Because they're out of their mind. They're sick.
Yeah.
And I want to tell you, so my interest in this issue, it's professional, certainly, but it's also personal, because I have a nephew who, when Prop 47 passed, he was 17 years old. He hurt himself in football. He started using opioids for the pain. And when the pills ran out, he shifted to heroin.
Yeah.
And my nephew, who shares my last name, ended up being homeless, and he's still homeless on the streets of Sacramento. He's a heroin addict. He slams meth. He steals every day. I see him at the off ramp. I see him. I've tried to get help for him for years, but we love him. He's sick. We want him to get help, but Prop 47 and the California laws did not allow that. So that was honestly, like, I put 2 years of my life into Prop 36, and I didn't get paid a dime. I did it to help my nephew and people like him, because we want them to get treatment. And what Prop 36 did is it brought back the carrot and the stick. So the stick that Prop 36 brought back is that on the third offense of possession of hard drugs, you can be charged with what's called a treatment mandated felony. And that just means that, like the old days, you get into court and the judge says, okay, you want some drug court or do you want jail? And guess what? A lot more people are choosing treatment now. Not everybody,
Right.
but
Well,
it's, it's not rocket science. So hopefully the homeless population starts to go down. We're actually getting data right now from around the state that shows that in a lot of places it is, except places like LA, where they continue to just tie the hands of law enforcement on aggressive enforcement.
well, the sinister part of it is they use terms like harm reduction, and they say
Yeah.
and compassion. Like they weaponize these words. Like if you think that somebody that is completely hit rock bottom, they have no hope of cleaning up themselves on their own. It's like they forgot that there's the thing called tough love, or like the best thing that can happen to you is a jail cell a lot of the times if you've gotten to that point. We don't have sanitariums anymore. There's few detox facilities. So unfortunately, it does become the jail cell. You get thrown in jail for 2 weeks. At least you're not going to be able to use for those 2 weeks. And by the end of that time period, maybe there's a chance that you will have, flipped a switch in your brain that can help you want to get into some sort of recovery. But you got all these people that go around these non-governmental organizations that hand out literally hand out fentanyl needles and crack pipes, and that's still mind-boggling to me. But they don't hand out any literature about how to get into treatment. All they're doing is perpetuating their drug use, and it's psychotic. It's truly psychotic, and I don't understand how we got here. I've lived here my whole life, and I used to be 14 years old in the early 2000s and take the train from San Jose to San Francisco and go spend the weekend with my buddy Lauren. We didn't have cell phones, but I was just like, okay, have fun. Check in with me every night. Like, what parent in their right mind would do that today?
Yeah, nobody. Well, it's two things. It's, this ideology, the harm reduction ideology, which I'm very familiar with. It's completely failed, but it's like a religion to people that believe in that. And they believe in it so strongly. And I have lots of people that are my friends that believe that stuff. And I just keep telling them, look at what you have done to California, and show me one example anywhere in the country where harm reduction actually results in less people dying of overdoses and using drugs in the long run. There just isn't. It's a total failed policy. But you mentioned the NGOs. That's the game changer, because there is millions and millions, if not billions of dollars being funneled into NGOs all over San Francisco, Santa Cruz, LA, Sacramento. And you've got executive directors making six-figure salaries, and you've got all these officers that are getting paid, and they're all in the harm reduction business. They're not going to stop that money train. They are getting paid by California to execute this failed policy, and they're going to fight tooth and nail. They show up at the Capitol. They give money to these, lawmakers. They do. They take the money with one hand from the state, and then they show up and they write a check to the lawmaker with the other hand.
I know. I talk about it every episode. And I mean, even guys like Elon Musk have pointed it out. It's so obvious in your face that if you have an organization that is in charge of reducing harm and fixing the homeless problem, but if they solve the problem, all of their funding is going to go away. They have zero incentive to solve the problem. And that right there is the homeless industrial complex. And
that's right. No, it's real.
And that's why they call it the homeless industrial complex. It's a play off of the military industrial complex, because it's like war is profit, homelessness and drug use is profit. And I don't understand how so many people don't see it. Like you said, it's like a religion. It's like a religion to people. And out here in Santa Cruz, they're just as like, I'm in the Santa Cruz mountains. So it's like once you cross over a certain threshold down towards the coast, like downtown Santa Cruz is like a different planet. It's the most progressive place you'll ever see. And they think that they're fixing the world. And it's like, look around, just literally look around, go walk around the perimeter of downtown, and you'll see people in absolute misery. And you're like, I don't know, man. Like what else is Prop 36 going to do? Because Gavin Newsom's getting a lot of criticism that he's not using the funding properly, or so what's happening with Prop 36? We all voted on it, but I'm not seeing anything.
Yeah, well, so it did pass overwhelmingly. It was on the ballot in November of 24. and 68% of the electorate voted for it. By the way, like when we launched it, because I was, on the campaign team from the get-go, we got Democrats to support it. So our early signers were like London Breed from San Francisco, the mayor there, Matt Mahan from San Jose, Todd Gloria so we had all these Democrat mayors supporting it. It was very bipartisan, right? That's why 68% of the voters passed it. But what happened is, in every county, by the way, including Santa Cruz, although Santa Cruz was the lowest performing county in the state. Sorry to tell you.
Yeah, shocker.
Only 53% of Santa Cruz residents voted yes, which is, pretty dismal. San Francisco was 63%. So there you go.
Yeah,
but,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So the good news is there were three main pillars of Prop 36. The first one tackled the retail theft, right? And it said on a third conviction for petty theft, you could be charged with a felony, which means real jail, real prison. That's working. All across California, we're seeing the results on that. Retail theft is going down. I mean, there's still thieves and jerks stealing, but the numbers, the data shows that retail theft and repeat theft is going down dramatically. And we're going to be putting out a report really soon on the statewide data. So Newsom didn't screw that up. He can't because that's just up to local police and prosecutors. Then there was the second pillar of Prop 36 targeted fentanyl dealers. And it said, if you're dealing fentanyl, we're going to hammer you. You're going to prison. We maxed out the exposure on that. That's working. Fentanyl dealers are going to prison. Overdoses on fentanyl are way down in California. That's good news. It also helps that the flow has been limited coming in from Mexico. Mm-hmm. But then the third piece is the piece that Newsom is deliberately trying to stop, and that is the treatment, the drug treatment for the serious addicted. And so remember I told you Prop 36 changed the law so that now if you're caught with heroin, meth, cocaine, PCP, acid, on the third conviction, you can be arrested for a felony and referred to mandated treatment. Well, we need money for the mandated treatment. They have to pay the doctors, the treatment providers, probation officers, et cetera. And Newsom is starving it of funding. He will not give it any significant money. He's thrown chump change. In the scheme of California, 40 million people, a $300 billion budget, he's thrown chump change at it. He doesn't like it. And there's a reason why he doesn't want to support it, which I can tell you if you want to know.
Oh, yes.
The main reason that Newsom opposed Prop 36, and specifically the drug component, is that his biggest donors are committed to drug legalization, like George Soros and the Open Societies and Alex Soros. If you look at Newsom's benefactors, who's been writing him the checks, it's people from the Soros affiliates. It's these, billionaire ladies across California. You know who I'm talking about. There's a bunch of them. Progressive women that are committed to the decriminalization and the progressive causes.
Now I'm wondering who these names are, because the only one that popped into mind isn't. She's definitely not supporting it. Nicole Shanahan.
Yeah, she used to actually. She flipped. She supported Prop 47. So there you go. Now she's open-eyed. But
we were duped into that because they did the same thing they do with every bill. It's everybody gets a puppy bill, and it actually kills all the puppies. Like that's
right. We were duped, but that's 100%. Like unequivocally, Newsom is looking to run for president. His major donors in California do not support what we're trying to do with drug treatment. They just want it to be a free-for-all. And I get it. I know a lot of libertarians and people that just say, oh, shit, people should just use drugs at willy-nilly.
I'm a libertarian. So I'm like, yeah, I have, but I don't. So like a lot of libertarian stance on this, just to clarify, is that drugs should be illegal, but it should be done as a business, open air drug use. You shouldn't be like, you should be able to do whatever you want in the comfort of your own home, as long as you're not hurting anybody else. That's the idea behind it. But that's not what happens. You get these, like they decriminalize stuff. So it makes like this gray area and it just becomes an absolute disaster. But that's a different debate. So
No, it's true. I mean, that's the debate, and I understand that. I have libertarian views on other topics, but on drugs, it just doesn't work. When people cook their brain and turn into, maniacs and are running around the street, defecating in the gutters and stealing out of our cars. And I mean, you mentioned Santa Cruz, like I won't even go down there anymore with my kids at certain times of day. I mean, I used to go to the boardwalk all the time when I was a kid. Now I go down there and I'm like, I'm not coming back here. It's
when's the last time you've been there? When's the last time you've been there?
I went there over the summer, and it was,
I'm surprised because that's like my normal running route, and I feel like it's gotten better since
Well, I'm talking about like down along the railroad tracks and the path there along the river. Maybe it has been better. I've only gone occasionally, and it's on warm days where everyone seems to be swarming. But it didn't used to be that way. Is my point. And in Sacramento, which I'm 5 minutes from Sacramento, and my wife and I, we know better than to go downtown Sacramento, any warm night of the week.
Yeah, and you don't need Santa Cruz. You got Folsom. I love Folsom.
Folsom's great.
Yeah. So he's withholding the money essentially, and I mean, I feel like there's more to it than that as well because he's got this massive budget deficit. But he'll keep funding the harm reduction folks, but what he's actually mandated to do, he's not doing that, which is fund the treatment.
He should fund the treatment. I mean, did you see last week they gave $100 million to Planned Parenthood?
Yeah.
For their work?
Oh, don't even get me like. Planned Parenthood is another one of those terms like harm reduction. Like, what parenthood are you planning? No, Planned Parenthood is an evil organization, if you ask me, and especially when you get into the founding of it. And what's her name? Thatcher. But the amount of money that they give to Planned Parenthood, the non-governmental organizations to fund the homeless industrial complex, the high-speed rail to nowhere. I mean, then you have the voters specifically voting on reducing crime, and he's withholding that money. This is evil to me.
It is to me too. And I got really tired as a DA. I would often go to Sacramento. People would ask me to come testify on bills that we were running to try and fix the law, whether it was the retail theft piece or the fentanyl piece or the drug piece. And I don't know if you've ever been to Sacramento and see how these committee hearings work, but they'll take a bill, an idea for a law, and then they'll run it through these committees. And in the committees, there's an opportunity for interested parties and groups to lodge their support or their opposition. And I can't tell you how many times, I was there on a very modest public safety bill that was designed to make our community safer and to improve our lives. And it would be me and a handful of sheriffs and DAs. And then on the other side, there'd be 100 people lined up from every NGO in the state, taking money from the state to do harm reduction, racial injustice work, whatever. And they would one by one come up and kill the bill. We're opposed, we're opposed, we're opposed. So that's the other part of it is the Sacramento, the lawmakers there and the Democrats are hostage. They're being held hostage by these NGOs that write checks for millions of dollars for all of them and different amounts. But it's just follow the money. You've heard that before. If you follow the money on all of these people, all of the supermajority, it all comes back to the same groups.
And when you say being held hostage, you mean they won't get reelected because they won't get the funding to get reelected, right?
If they burn the NGOs, if they burn the teachers, if they burn the nurses, if they burn SEIU, if they, there's a price to pay.
Well, it's the same thing with like the homeless industrial. So to me, there's two different aspects to the homeless industrial complex. So there's the NGOs that do the harm reduction crap. And then there's the housing stuff where they talk about, we need more affordable housing. And they're completely separate issues. I just talked to Steve Hilton about this. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me that they develop these plans to build these high-rise buildings that are supposed to be affordable housing. And then they give the contracts to these unions that are like no big contracts to, because they get tons of money to build these structures. And then those same unions are the ones funneling money back into their campaigns. Is that how that works?
100%. That's the grift. And it's, the fraud, the amount of fraud in California, I'm convinced is hundreds of billions of dollars.
Yeah.
I mean, we know it's a fact that there was over $32 billion stolen from California in the EDD crisis. Remember that?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right? People claiming, those benefits during COVID. We know that the train to nowhere, the speed, whatever,
the moderately fast rail.
Yeah, money suck. And then they just had another big bust in LA with, more NGOs that were stealing money. So if the U.S. attorney, if the federal government stomps into California like they did in Minnesota, get ready. It's going to be a blowout of fraud and hopefully a lot of arrest.
Yeah, I'd love to get Harmeet Dillon on here. I talk with her every now and then, and yeah, I mean she's right there with you on everything that we're talking about. But Bill Asaley is doing a lot of great work, but it's like there's so much fraud. It's so rampant that it's like, where do you start? You had the Shangri-La guy that was part of the Project Home Key thing where they take dilapidated hotels and then he gets busted paying off his Amex bill, buying a Maserati or whatever. And then you got this guy that was arrested, or this lady that was arrested in San Francisco today. And it's all the exact same thing that they're doing. They're these leaders it's like the leaders of the NGOs are already paying themselves $250,000 a year. And then they got to embezzle money on top of that. It's so infuriating,
Well, I have to tell you this, during the Prop 36 campaign, I was on the negotiating team. You had the core campaign, and we were negotiating with the governor's office and the legislature because they were trying to kill our initiative from day one. They were trying to keep it off the ballot. And I don't know if you remember any of this, but one of the people that we were principally dealing with was Dana Williamson, who was Governor Newsom's chief of staff. It was his right-hand person.
Right. She just got busted. Yeah.
Yeah, she just got indicted because she and a bunch of other lobbyists were running a grift where they were skimming money off a campaign account belonging to Javier Becerra.
Right.
Total corruption from Newsom's right-hand person, who I dealt with, and I found her to be completely untrustworthy and just deceptive and manipulative, and all these senior lobbyists were involved. And so my point is, like, nobody should be surprised that the corruption is deep in California and goes all the way to the top. It does. 100%. We need an army of U.S. attorneys and FBI agents to come in and kick the doors in and start looking.
Well, you had the little mini Epstein situation going on out in Oakland too, where you had those two brothers, the Tao brothers, and you had or not the Tao brothers. You had Sheng Tao got indicted, and then there was those two brothers that ran like a sanitation company, but they were also doing like small ADU houses. And then those guys were, it turns out they were like trying to blackmail Rob Bonta, allegedly, from a letter that was written. So yeah, there's all these ties. And then you see like the things that the California, like Rob Bonta, the things that you see him go after are like Huntington Beach trying to have their own housing plan. You never see them going after actual criminality. You see them going after things that go against their agenda. And yeah, it's infuriating. Like, cause I'm a middle class tradesman, just normal guy that's grinding. And no matter how much, I'm 42 years old now. I was born and raised here. No matter how much, I make about just around $110,000 a year. That's only $2,000 more than the poverty level technically in the county that I live in. No matter how much of a raise I get, I'm always just out of reach of being able to buy a house. And then you see all of these billions of dollars getting thrown away, and politicians and NGO heads living like fat cats. And it's such a kick in the balls. And then like the more I almost wish I didn't know the stuff that I know, and I didn't learn the stuff that I know, because you feel helpless. Like, what can we do about it? It's demoralizing, like you said with the cops earlier. And
Well, I'm with you. I mean, I told you before we went on the air that, you know, I've followed you on X for a while, and when you comment, I find myself often totally agreeing with what you're saying. It's frustrating, you know, watching this insanity unfold in front of us. I'm a native Californian too, and I don't consider myself a hard partisan. I'm just a common sense guy who's, you know, absolutely frustrated with what's going on. So I think we're aligned on that. And I know you wanted to talk about the immigration stuff as well, and that's another one that defies all common sense to me. You know, what California's sanctuary policies and what that actually means.
yeah, there's a specific. We only got like 10 more minutes, so to wrap up, basically, what I wanted to ask is I'm a little confused on the cooperation between local police jurisdictions and ICE, because, you know, I'm not actually a huge fan of, I've been saying it since before Trump got into office. I'm not a huge fan of, you know, brown shirts going around asking people for their papers. I'm not a huge fan of like the way they're going about the deportation. That's a different conversation. But police, like if you arrest somebody, like cops, and you're going to charge that person and you have them in custody, and ICE hits up the San Francisco PD and says, hey, this guy is here illegally, can you detain him for us? They're not allowed to cooperate with ICE. Is that correct? Do I have that right?
Yeah, that's generally true across California. We have a sanctuary law. It was called the California Values Act, AB 54, or Senate Bill 54, that was passed. I think Rob Bonta actually was maybe the original author of it during Trump 1.0. And it says that California law enforcement, sheriffs, police, DAs, all of us, shall not cooperate with ICE when it comes to detainers, when it comes to, you know, picking up the phone and calling them and saying, hey, I got a guy in my jail or a guy I'm prosecuting who's you know, illegal, who just committed this crime. In the old days, we used to do that. So here's what's happened. So California has implemented this sanctuary policy state, and it ties our hands. And if you look at the law and you really dig into it, you know, Newsom would say, well, we still left you some tools in that law that you could use. So it's not like we stopped all cooperation. But what they're lying about is that the law says there's all this stuff that we shall not cooperate on. And then they say there's this limited class of like violent crimes where you can, if you're the sheriff or the DA or the police chief, you're allowed to, but we don't tell you have to. And so it's up to you. So then you have to layer over that the narrative that you're getting in every county in California, especially the coastal counties. ICE is the devil. They're a bunch of Nazis. We should not be cooperating. And so even though you have situations where law enforcement could, like a rapist,
Yeah.
the current law would allow a local sheriff, if they arrest a rapist, to pick up the phone and notify ICE that, hey, we got this guy. But they don't do it because there's such local stigma against any cooperation at all. And so it's really a lie, and it's super complicated. I mean, the general rule is that ICE has to be the one to initiate an inquiry about a specific person. So if ICE has a list of people, you know, they can call the sheriff or the local police and say, hey, do you have this guy who committed this violent crime? And if the agency says yes, ICE can say, well, will you hold them for us? And the agency can say yes or no. It's up to them. There's no mandate for a rapist.
Well, and even that, ICE has to, you know, find a needle in a haystack to just detain the guy instead of actual municipalities being like, oh, we arrested this guy for drunk driving. You know, we've determined
it's made it worse. It's so here, you know, what I keep telling people, and my county is very diverse. It's 40% Hispanic. We have a big ag community. So I understand the concerns about it, but the sanctuary laws have made the situation worse. And here's why. Now, when ICE is looking for somebody, like a target. They've got a list of people who are violent criminals or bad guys, they're drug dealers or whatever, and they're coming into my county. I can't tell them, oh, hey, that guy actually is in jail, or I know exactly where that guy lives. We know
What do you
where
mean?
he is.
What do you mean you can't tell them?
I can't cooperate with them. My hands are tied. I cannot call ICE and the sheriff and the police chief. They cannot proactively call ICE to say, we've got somebody who we think you would be interested in. We can't do that. And so ICE is blind for the most part. So when they they know they're looking for certain people, but they'll come into my county and they go on roving missions to try and find these people. And so there's a lot of collateral damage. This is the point. A lot of the collateral damage that we're seeing around the country in sanctuary states is because there's been no collaboration between local law enforcement and ICE. Right. If we just simply collaborated, you wouldn't have these operations going on where ICE is rolling in heavy with multiple vans and lots of dudes and jumping out and chasing people. That wouldn't happen. It's a failed policy. We should go back to the old way, which is we're going to cooperate when somebody's arrested. We're going to be able to call ICE if they're a suspect. It would never hit the airways. Nobody would even know it's going on. That's how it used to work. So again, another example, progressive policies have made it worse.
Right. So how legally, if we wanted to get it back to where police agencies could do that, they could call ICE directly and be like, hey, we busted this guy for drunk driving. We know he's here illegally. Come and get him. How do we get back to that? Does that need to be passed by the state legislature? Or is that something that could get put on the ballot with a ballot initiative?
It could be put on the ballot. I mean, the easiest way would be the legislature to fix it, to amend the law. And I've been saying that for years now, that they need to fix this law and allow that cooperation. I think most reasonable people, whether you're a Democrat, Independent, Republican, you'd say, yeah, I mean, especially for certain offenders, allow us to cooperate to get these people into ICE custody. But the legislature has to do it, or an initiative. But I don't know. I mean, an initiative in California may not have a lot of luck because the programming we all get, and this is my point, is I don't care what county you're in, you're told 24/7 by the media and others that ICE is the devil and nobody should cooperate, which is just not true. I mean, these are federal law enforcement officers who are often looking for really bad guys, and they're getting a raw deal in my experience. They're not, determined to look for a grandma who's here illegally. That's not their deal. They're looking for targets, and we've made it impossible for them to find them.
It's madness. All right, Jeff, before you get out of here, what's the hope? Is there hope? Can we fix this?
Well, I think you nailed it earlier. Like, people need to pay attention. We need to abandon partisan loyalties.
Yes.
I'll just tell you, I have a whole bunch of family members that live in Santa Cruz County. They're loyal Democrats. They vote for every Democrat that pops up on the ballot every single time. They don't do any research other than they're a Democrat. And I tell them, and again, I'm in a deep blue county and I'm a nonpartisan guy, but I'm like, you have to do your homework. Look at the candidates, look at the issues. There's a lot of really crazy people out there on issues that you care about. And if you don't study and make an informed decision, you're just going to keep living the same thing. It's going to be Groundhog Day in California. It's not going to get any better.
Well, that's what this show's for. Try and inform as many people as I can. Let people know, like, I'm not some far right, guy. I'm just trying to do what I can to help spread awareness of why California is in the shape that it's in. So, well, all right,
thank you for that.
Yeah, no, thank you for taking the time to come on and explain. Yeah, you cleared up a lot of things that I didn't really understand. So, yeah, next time you're out here, hit me up and I'll buy you a burrito. We'll go on a hike or something.
All right, deal. Thanks,
all right.
Michael.
Thanks, Jeff. I really appreciate it. All right, you too.
You got it. Bye.
Wow, man, guys, this stuff just gets me worked up. It's hard not to. Hey, Danny, nice to see you. Sorry, I wasn't too lively on the chat tonight. Yeah, sorry, Danny, I wasn't reading the chat tonight. I just wanted to make sure that I was in tune with what Jeff was talking about there. But it's so infuriating. Not even infuriating is the wrong word. I'm past being mad. It's so demoralizing knowing that like these aren't these aren't like right-wing policies to think that like, hey, this guy got busted for robbery, with a weapon, and the police, and he's here illegally, and the police can't call ICE and say, hey, deport this guy. They can't do it. Their hands are tied. And like Jeff just said there, ICE could be looking for a violent criminal, and Jeff could be like, oh, I know that guy is sitting in this county jail right now. I know exactly where he is. I can't call ICE and tell them. That's insane. That's just insane to me. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the fix is. I think only thing people like me and you guys can do is just keep talking about it. And, when it comes up at parties or at the bar or whatever, try and talk to people without being the person that has to win the argument, being like, ask leading questions. Well, don't just tell people what needs to be. Ask them like, well, why do you feel that way? Why do you feel that way? Do you think this could be a solution to that? Oh, well, did you know that they're not allowed to do this and that? And not have actual, confrontations with people and call people stupid leftist retards, because that tends to be what I want to do. But, try and actually talk to people like they're human beings, even the ones that wanted to force injections on us 5 years ago. All right. J-Bo, what up, man? I haven't seen you in a while. Rastradamus, nice to see you. Pitchfork still work. Yeah. Yeah, so do wood chippers, so do helicopter rides, but I can't promote that type of thing. I can only dream. So all right, folks, that was a fun, enlightening conversation for a random middle of the week stream. I will be back here on Sunday at 6:00. Probably just be a solo episode, unless I'm in communication with Katie Grimes from the California Globe. She's been doing a lot of solid reporting lately. Actually, she's been doing a lot of solid reporting for her entire career. But hopefully I'll get her on pretty soon. Just have to be like a daytime episode, so that'll be a little tricky. Bunch of other guests that I'm trying to work out. I'd love to get Harmeet Dillon on here, but my show's probably not big enough for her to come on here. But I'll keep trying. Yeah, some really cool people that have reached out to that haven't gotten back to me yet. So I'll keep you guys posted. I'm trying to do more interviews. Yeah. What up, Tim? Nice to see you, man. So that is all I got for the evening. But before we get out of here, we got to tell a joke from the greatest book ever written, The Truth About Chuck Norris. This is the sequel to that book, Chuck Norris Cannot Be Stopped, courtesy of Danger there in the chat. He's not there right now, but he's there always in spirit. Chuck Norris, joke of the evening. You know how it works. I open the book. My eyes go to a joke. I read it. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's not. Chuck Norris joke of the evening. If Chuck Norris had $1 for every time he heard, I didn't know you could fit that in there, he would have $38,982. And on that note, stay Cali based.